welcome to Horror Review Sunday, or Horrific Review Sunday. On my Patreon, if you're not a Patreon, you should. And on my Patreon, I listed like 10 movies, and my Patreon selected this one, Cabin in the Woods, but you already knew that because the title of the video kind of gave it away. So, let's talk about this movie. Written by Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard, big names in Hollywood, and I think Drew Goddard went on to do like the El Royale Hotel movie. I really liked that one in 2018. And this is one of the most unique horror movies of all time. It's like today's Scream. It's kind of meta, very meta. Like there's like tropes that they're making fun of in this movie that you would see in horror movies. Like, don't go in the basement. Why are you splitting up? Things like that. And it's just hilarious. This movie is a horror comedy, basically. And it's so damn unique. And I love it. The only negatives I would say about this movie is that why would you have a purge button? There will be some spoilers, but I'll try to keep this as spoiler free right now. But if you haven't seen it by now, that's on you. It's came out like what, 2011, 2012? Why would you have a purge button? That just makes no sense to me. Why would you have a button that just unleashes monsters? What scenario would call for that? That just makes no sense. There's some CGI monsters, especially the CGI snake. That one looked awful. Maybe spend an extra day or two working on that one in the visual effects department, because that one just looked horrendous. There were some bad CGI monsters and blood that are just so damn horrid that it just takes you right out of it, and I prefer practical. And this movie doesn't really have much of an introduction to the characters in this main story that we're following, the story within the story, because there's these outside government characters, and then there's the main kids that go to the cabin in the woods. And I like that title too. It's just what basic generic title that obviously it's just another trope. Like, it's making fun of tropes within the movie, and the name of it is basically the common trope that you would see in slashers: is kids go to a cabin in the woods. It's the perfect title for this type of movie. But there's hardly introduction to these characters. Like, when they get to the cabin, they're supposed to like start altering their personalities a little bit because of reasons that I won't get into right now, but you don't really notice it because you don't really know them that well. Like, they're pointing out like, this person's acting different. I'm like, are they? Because I didn't really know who they were before. You're saying they're acting different. I don't know. They seem the same to me. So I just feel like they should have had more time, more downtime at the beginning to introduce these characters. It's very quick. They bump into each other. They throw in this new guy who just transferred from a different school, and then they're in the mess. They're in the cabin, and their personalities change. Like, there's not much there. So you don't really root for these characters, but maybe that was done on purpose, because that's another trope in horror movies, especially slashers, is that you never care about the characters. You just want to see them die. I don't really want to see these characters die, but I just didn't feel like I knew them that much. But other than that, I think the rest is great. I love the concept of this movie. It's just flipping the genre on its head, it's making fun of it, and it's just hilarious. The comedy between Richard Jenkins' character and like Whitford from Billy Madison, they're back and forth. They're hilarious. The stoner guy, Marty, he is just hysterical. Everything he said, just his face that he would make. He's like, what? Why? Why would we go in the basement? Why would we do this? That makes no sense.
This isn't right. We should split up. We can cover more ground that way.
Yeah, good idea. Really?
I just love everything that the stoner guy said. He was just freaking hysterical. The kills in this movie are brutal. There's a few shock kills that just come out of nowhere. And the zombies, like some of the creatures in the movies, look great. The zombie hillbillies that come out of the ground, they look fantastic. They keep them in the shadows, just the way they look. Their choice of weapon, the whole like chain with the what do they call it, bear trap. Awesome weapon, very unique. I've never seen that before, so awesome. And if you're gonna make fun of slashers and you're gonna purposely check the boxes to make fun of them, you gotta have boobs in a slasher, and you get a little bit in this movie. So they checked that box. Good for you. And yeah, like I said, the comedy just works. There's not much horror in it. There's some, but mainly this movie just works as a comedy that's poking fun at the slasher genre and explaining why those tropes happen in those other movies. It almost makes you look at those movies like Evil Dead and whatnot with a different lens. Like, oh, that's why that character is so stupid and making that decision. They're being, controlled. They're like puppets on strings. It makes you look at those movies a little bit differently. Like, if you put all those movies in this same universe, it kind of explains why those tropes exist and why characters make stupid decisions in those slashers. But yeah, final thoughts. I think this is a very unique, awesome slasher movie. It changes the way you look at other ones, and it's got great performances, a great cast, and some good kills. It's very unique and definitely worth checking out. I think it will be probably considered a classic at some point. So when it comes to The Cabin in the Woods, definitely go out and buy it. The hottest chick in this movie is the blonde chick Jules, and the best shot in this movie is when Jules is dancing in front of that fire. That is sexy as hell. The best scene in this movie, as much as I think it's ridiculous why there is a purge button, but that scene when she hits the purge button and everything just comes out of the elevators and is ripping people apart, that scene is fantastic. But then we meet our cast of stereotypes. You got the stoner, goofball, you got the jock, you got the blonde, and then you got the final girl, and you got the smart guy, I guess. Even though he's kind of a jock too, but he becomes the smart character, I guess, the brainiac. And then I love the bong cup, just this huge ass cup that like shrinks down. It's just, he uses it as a weapon later on. And it has the trope of like no cell phone signals, oh, there's no cell signal. And then you got the cliche creepy gas attendant who's like in on it, kind of like a Hills Have Eyes and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think. There's always that guy who's kind of in on it, who sends them to their death. And he takes his like role as that creepy guy serious. He calls like Whitford and is playing that role dramatically.
Take this lightly, boy. It wasn't all by your numbers. The fool nearly derailed the invocation with his insolence. The ancient ones see everything, and they will not be... I'm still on speakerphone, aren't I?
Then we see this eagle as they're going into like this hole in this cave in the mountain. There's like an eagle that hits like this electric force shield, like this shield, and it electrocutes it. And I feel like that was a mistake to show us that already. Because then when Thor gets on the bike and ironically, Thor gets electrocuted by that shield, it would have been a bigger shock. Because if knowing about the eagle hitting that shield, it takes away the shock later on. Because as he's going, you're like, oh yeah, that's where the eagle got killed. So I feel like they shouldn't have shown the eagle getting electrocuted by that shield, foreshadowing future events. And then they get to the cabin, and this isn't a lot of movies where they show you the outside and it looks small, but then when they're inside, every room is huge. It's like that's bullshit. There's no way that dilapidated, nasty ass cabin is that huge and good looking on the inside. It doesn't even look that bad on the inside. It looks worse on the outside. And then they got like the two-way mirror, and so she's like stripping down, and then he's like, oh, he's playing Mr. Nice Guy. He's like, don't get naked, and I'm a good guy. And then he gets in the other room, and knowing that two-way mirror is right there, and he just gets naked like immediately. Like, all right, you get this room, I'll get your room. And you can see me get naked. Like, he just gets in there, takes his shirt off to show off his body. Like, yeah, look at me, I work out. And then he starts, like, pulling down his pants and underwear as she, like, quickly puts up the painting to not see him naked. It's like, that guy knew she had to be watching. So he purposely got naked in front of her. And then we find out they're being watched, and the government sent them there. They sent them this invitation from one of their cousins. And then at the end of the movie, we find out that they never really had a cousin that lived there. So... and we find out, like, they've been contaminating them. Like, they prepped these people beforehand. Like, they contaminated the guy's pot, but it didn't work. And then they contaminated the blonde chick's hair dye. So when she dyed her hair blonde, it made her more dumb. And then they have, like, these pheromones in the ground that make them horny, that make them just want to go randomly run out in the woods and have sex. They go in the cellar, and whatever item they pick up is what will cause specific monsters to attack, we find out later on. And they pick the killer zombie hillbillies. But we see, like, this pinhead box. Like, it's a ball, it's like a sphere, but it's supposed to be like the Lament configuration, but a ball instead. It almost looks like it. And then later on, you see that monster, like, all the saw blades in his head. So instead of pinhead, he's sawhead, or saw blade head. But yeah, I like how they explain away all those stupid decisions in movies before. Like, they start, like, releasing mist that makes them want to go out in the woods and have sex, and making them just come up with excuses that make no sense. And there was another one, right? Oh yeah, like, read it. Like, Just like in Evil Dead, when they get the book and they're like reading the Latins, like, why would you do that? And then in this movie, it explains it. There's like a voice whispering in their head, like, read it, read the Latin. And the stoner's like, no, don't do it. Why would you do that? It sounds like a bad idea. The stoner is like the voice of reason in the movie. He's my favorite character. But then we see like this board of monsters that they're betting on, like which one's going to get released. And one of them said like a molesting tree, which I think was the Evil Dead reference. One of them said Deadites, and one of them said twins, so The Shining. And then one of them just said Kevin. What horror movie references that? Just Kevin. I would love to see which one was Kevin. Yeah, they have all these monsters, clowns, aliens, monsters, whatnot. Mummy. But yeah, then their personalities start to change. You're starting to notice, like, the one guy starts wearing glasses, and the blonde's acting like a blonde. The jock's starting to get extra jockey and become a pervert. Like, come on, make out with each other. We get a mention of Thorazine, and every time I hear that in a movie, I automatically think of Dr. Loomis in Halloween. Like, we need to give him Thorazine. And then Thor, he gets electrocuted. I thought that was funny. So then we find out that this is happening because of a sacrifice. Like, they need to sacrifice 5 people that have specific personalities. Otherwise, it doesn't work, which is just odd. Like, I get why, writing-wise, they're trying to explain why there's always these certain characters in movies. But it just doesn't really make sense. And then, like, there's not those 5 people in, like, Tokyo. Like, there's all these different countries doing it at once. And they all managed to kill 0 people, and now it's all down to America to save the day. Like, in Tokyo, there's just a classroom of girls. I don't see a stoner in that room. I don't see the blonde. I don't see the jock. I don't see the brainiac. Like, they're all smart, so I guess that's just one. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, what if one country killed one, and this one killed one, and one? Would it all add up to 5? Or does it have to be 5 all in one country? I don't get that. Like, I feel like the rules could be explained a little bit better about that, but I just have questions. Like, and does the location change? It can't, because the cabin in the woods setting, it has all that shit underneath, and they wouldn't just move that from place to place. So how has nobody bumped into this place? How does nobody in the city ever come across that shield? Like, they haven't been discovered. I don't know. You have to stretch your disbelief to be like, all right, I guess nobody would know about that field, that force field that's sitting there, and nobody's like aware of what's going on. I like that the final girl in this movie fights back, and she fights back hard. She shoves like the crowbars through the guy's face, and then she takes the knife and she's stabbing him a bunch in the chest. That's how you do it. Looking at you, Laurie Strode, fucking dropping the knife over and over and over again. And then we get the surprise kill in the RV, and it just comes out of nowhere. He's just driving, and he's talking, and boom, like a big old knife goes right through his throat, and it's brutal as hell. And then they think it's over. I like they say that the final girl death is optional. I like that addition. But then we find out she's not even a virgin, so I guess it doesn't matter, because then we find out, because Sigourney Weaver, we find out that she's in charge, not Sigourney Weaver, like whatever her character's name is. I think they call her the director. She's like, yeah, the final girl has to just be pure. But she's like, I'm not a virgin. And she's like, yeah, we work with what we get. So it's like, well, either she has to be a virgin or not. You can't just bend the rules. And honestly, like, why Sigourney Weaver? I know people love her because she's like, in the Alien movies, but is she the only one that accepted the role? Like, I wonder how many people they asked for that role to represent the director. Because honestly, I could think of 10 other people that would be more iconic to me. And honestly, I haven't even seen the original Alien movie. So when I saw this back in 2011, I was like, who's that? It's like, who is this? Why is she seem like everyone in the audience was like, oh my gosh, it's Ripley. I'm like, Ripley who? Who? What? But then they get in this elevator, and they see all these other elevators of all that have the monsters in them. And again, you kind of have to stretch disbelief. Like, okay, I guess they somehow can contain these things in these little glass boxes. Like, some of them are gigantic. They're freaking monsters. Some of them are ghosts. Can't ghosts go through walls? So what, they have like a magic spell, like 13 ghosts on the glass that keeps the ghosts from being able to go through it? Like, how are they containing these things in these boxes? I have to call bullshit. And I have to call bullshit on the purge button, but I like that it happens. She hits the button, and then boom, they're all getting ripped apart. You got like a scorpion transformer looking thing with like a saw blade tail that's just ripping people apart. You got a unicorn kill, which was my favorite kill in the movie. Best kill, just because of how unique this is. A unicorn stabbing the guy right in the gut. That was just hilarious. And then Whitford's character, he's like been begging for a merman to kill people, and then he gets ironically killed by the merman. That merman looked horrifying. And when it's eating him, it's like blowing the blood out of its blowhole in the back. Awesome. And then, yeah, the werewolf looked pretty good too. I'm glad it wasn't CGI, but the snake looked awful. That giant anaconda snake or python or whatever looked awful. And so then, you know, they kill Sigourney Weaver, or the hillbilly monster kills Sigourney Weaver, and then they'd say, fuck it, let's just let the earth die. And then we get this grim-ass ending where, because the stoner lived, the big old ancient gods come from beneath the earth and just destroy the entire earth. Because why not? Like, you didn't kill 5 people, so we're going to kill everybody just by destroying the earth with this giant monster hand. Awesome. So yeah, very dark, grim ending. I think that's all of it. So yeah, just a very fun, awesome, unique movie. Lots of blood, lots of good comedy in it. Very smartly written, and just makes you look at all those slasher movies from before differently. Like when I watch Evil Dead now, I'll be like, oh yeah, I bet that stupid decision was because I missed what's going through. Now, the worst kill in this movie would be Mr. Jenkins, who just gets stabbed in the stomach and bleeds out. But those are my thoughts on Cabin in the Woods. Put all your thoughts of this movie in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you like what you've seen, you can hit this like button, share it with all your friends, become a Patreon for as little as $1 a month to request movie reviews and participate in polls for future horrific review Sundays. And you can become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, auf Wiedersehen.